It is 5 o'clock somewhere, and you've tuned in to Season 4, Episode 4 of BRC. I'm Carrie Moynihan. For those of you who'd like to watch this episode, I highly recommend it. You can view Season 4 on our website, YouTube, Spotify, WhiskeyNetwork.net, and Zencastr. Last week on the show, I spoke with Ashley and Colby Frey about their new partnership with the University of Kentucky's Estate Whiskey Alliance. This week, I'm headed to the university to learn more about that endeavor with a tour of the JamesBBeamInstitute for Kentucky Spirits. But first, I sit down with Professor Janice Fernheimer to talk about her journey into the university's distilling program and some of the other exciting projects she's involved in. Later on, I'll talk to Ilka Balk, Associate Director of the Beam Institute, for an in-person tour of the facility. So kick off your shoes, pour yourself a dram, and join me for this episode of Barrel Room Chronicles.
Unleashed Coffee is a farm-to-cup adventure like no other. Step into a world where exceptional flavors, tantalizing aromas, and rich mouthfeel take you on a journey from your kitchen to the picturesque coffee plantations at origin. At Unleashed Coffee, we believe in fostering connections between coffee lovers and the hardworking farmers behind each bean. Join the journey through our coffee subscription program and gain access to our exclusive online community, connecting you to fellow enthusiasts and the producers of your morning brew. To help you extract every nuance of flavor from our beans, take part in our on-demand coffee brewing courses right in the comfort of your own home. If you are seeking B2B coffee solutions that go beyond just beans, our comprehensive wholesale packages cater to the diverse needs of mobile carts, farm stands, restaurants, cafes, retail shelves, and more. Look no further than Unleashed Coffee to quench your thirst for quality coffee. Use coupon code COFFEEBRC at the checkout to receive 10% off your first purchase at unleashedcoffee.com.
All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is you're catching the show today. Today I am here with Dr. Jan, and we're at the University of Kentucky in this beautiful studio that she will be interviewing me in later for her project. But she invited me here this morning to talk to her students, which was really fun. I got to talk to them about whiskey, bourbon, Scotch, Irish, and then, you know, the whole podcast and my career. It was really fun. And now I've got you in the hot seat.
Yes, I'm not used to being here.
So here we are. You've been teaching in this program for how long now?
By this program, I think you mean the Certificate in Distillation, Wine, and Brewing,
Yes.
which is, I think I've been teaching in it as long as it's existed, but okay. I was part of the initial meetings when they were talking about putting it together, and Dr. DePolt, Seth DePolt, was really interested in having some of us over from the humanities part of campus involved in the certificate program. So we proposed a course called Craft Writing,
Fantastic.
which has subtitle required. So I have a colleague who teaches it as beer writing for the
nice.
craft beer industry, and I teach it as bourbon writing, rectifying the record, something like the Kentucky industry in context.
Oh, fantastic. Now, do any of your students end up getting any articles published in any of the magazines around after taking this class?
So that's a great question. The first time I taught it, a couple of them did. They went on to do some interesting things in the industry. Mostly they end up doing other things in the industry. So I've had a couple of students who, one was really interested in becoming a distiller. One of the students from one of the first semesters I taught it is now a distiller over at Kings County Distilling in New York.
Okay. That's fantastic.
And he didn't necessarily come from a science background, so it was really fun for him. And I'll never forget, he was the one who introduced me to the concept of the infinity bottle.
Okay.
I was just kind of getting my feet wet in this industry and learning about things, and he wrote a really great piece about why you should make an infinity bottle.
That's awesome.
That's Chris Bernardi. I'll give him a little shout out.
Fantastic. Has he been able to meet Nicole Austin, who used to be there before she went over?
I don't know. We've had a couple of messages over LinkedIn because I'm hoping to bring him into class, even if just by Zoom, to talk with the students. As one student launched and then closed their own brand.
Oh, wow.
That was a returning student up in Chicago, and several have gone on to do other things, like on the operations line. Cynthia Wells is over at Sazerac, and someone's on sales for Limestone. So they go on to do
Fun.
interesting things. Not all of them end up getting the writing published, but most of them end up getting some kind of recognition or awards from the department, which is a nice start.
Speaking of awards, we are both WOW winners from this last year, and yeah, I know, it's so exciting. Honestly, I couldn't believe I won. I got there and I was like, "What?"
You and me both. It was such a
honor.
delight.
So tell me about your particular award. It's the Mike. What is it? Mike Alley?
It's the Mike Keys
Keys
Ally or Champion of the Year Award.
Okay.
The WOW Award started last year, so I think this is the second year. When Ilka, who's the Associate Director of the JamesBBeamInstitute here at the University of Kentucky, which is where the certificate is housed, emailed me to say, hey, is it okay? We want to nominate you. I was like, well, yeah, sure. I didn't even know what to say or do with myself. I was so humbled and honored and continue to be humbled and honored.
Same.
I mean, what an amazing, just all of the nominees, the incredible things that they're doing all across the industry.
And what people have to do to nominate, there's like this whole like form and people have to write all this stuff. It's like they have to write an essay about you and all these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, and you have to have 3 of them. So it was really honoring to have 3 people come out and say, oh, let me write this for you. I don't know. It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you first started doing the program, how much about whiskey did you know?
And around 2012 is when I started getting interested in whiskey. I was, at the time, I had just moved to Kentucky in 2010. By 2012, I was asked to be the director of the Jewish Studies program here. As part of that job, you have to go recruit students. And so I would go to these fairs and I would talk to students and they would come up and they'd say, oh, Jewish Studies, we're not Jewish. That has nothing to do with us. I'd be like, fine, 18-year-old students. Of course, if it's not you, it's maybe not that important.
Right.
But when their parents would come up and say, oh, we're not Jewish, that's not for us, I thought, there are a lot of really interesting things and Jewish people here in Kentucky, and they've done really interesting things in the state. Yeah. And so I was like, they must, what does everyone care about here? Everyone cares about bourbon and basketball and horses. I'm like, there must be Jewish people involved in those things. And lo and behold, there were and are and continue to be. And actually, Jewish people played a really important role in kind of, bourbon's heyday in the 19th century, and certainly post-Prohibition and reviving a lot of the distilleries. Yeah. And so that was work that I had started to do with J.T. Waldman, who is my collaborator and co-author on the graphic novel we're working on, to bring those kind of lesser-known stories to a broader audience. That project is America's Chosen Spirit. That is fun. And let's take a quick tangent on this graphic novel. How many pages do you have so far, and how many pages do you anticipate it being? So that is the bazillion-dollar question. So when we first started the project, we imagined, and you're coming from the entertainment world, so you can appreciate our desire to have seasons, 4 seasons, 10 episodes, or 10 chapters each. Mm-hmm. And we've got them all mapped out, and we've got about half of season 1 actually drafted and actually drawn. And JT's been working on the lettering, and I've been finishing up some things, and we're hoping to finish season 1 really soon. The long and the short of it is we had started doing the research for that, and we had, trounced around several of the archives here in Kentucky and over the river in Cincinnati, and we had been thinking about all of these stories that exist, but maybe people don't know as much about. We knew that, this was way back before. Now there are scholars doing the work and there's even a whole brand dedicated to African Americans who were involved in the industry. But At that time, there wasn't a lot of talk about that. There wasn't a lot of recognition, and there wasn't a lot of scholarship. But we knew. We were like, there must be. And so it was our goal to have a family, a young Jewish protagonist, and she was deeply involved with a young African American girl her age, and sort of telling the story of the rise of the Jewish woman's bourbon through their relationship. That's awesome. Well, yeah. I can't wait to read it when it comes out. You'll have to send me a copy. Yeah, definitely. And then we'll have to have you on the show again and talk about the. Yeah, we'll have to have some sips and then we'll to go. JT too. We'll have to bring him along. Absolutely. So that's how Seth kind of knew to reach out to me that I might be interested, and my colleague Jeff Rice, who teaches the craft beer part of the class, and so that started, and then that was going well, and at a certain point, my connections here at the Louis B. Nunn Center, we were approached to do what we thought were going to be some corporate interviews, and they wanted an unnamed entity wanted us to work with a class to do those. In the end, we couldn't make it past all of the legal hoops that were required. And so we had a really cool idea to pivot and start the Women in Bourbon Oral History Project, because when JT and I were doing research, there weren't a ton of smoking guns in the archives, in the oral histories about, women's influence in the industry. And yet we knew that was there too. And so, you can look over the last 10, 15 years and see how that's begun to attract a lot more attention and visibility. And so the Women in Bourbon Project was designed to actually make that a lot more visible.
What is your favorite thing about being involved with the Bourbon Project?
I love working with people, and I love making connections or helping others make connections and grow into the roles that they want to occupy. So I get to teach 2 classes in the certificate program, which is fantastic. And the way I structure both classes, whether the students, and you got to do it today, right? I bring in a lot of guest speakers, so students have direct access to people who have made it in the industry. And so they get to hear a little bit about their life journey and their career path and the kinds of things they needed to do and the kind of things they wish they knew how to do, maybe in a little bit different order. And oftentimes things happen organically. They meet people, they make a connection. We go on a distillery tour and they say, oh, we're looking to hire interns, and someone puts in an application and ends up with a job.
See, that's what's nice about living in this part of the woods. There's a lot more possibilities to just happen upon an internship at a distillery. And in Los Angeles, there's only a couple distilleries, and so it's a lot harder to get.
But even still, you have to be put in the right situation and have the right entree and figure out how to make a good impression, right? And students are students; they're still learning all those wonderful things. Right. But that I love that part, and the part about the interviewing project when I'm teaching the class where we do interviews. students have to learn a lot about the industry in order to be able to ask good questions. And they're still students, and they're still learning. And student interviews aren't the same as professional interviews, but they've done an amazing job.
What is your 5-year plan with all of these things?
With the Women in Bourbon Project, I would love for us to have, 150, 200 interviews, because what's amazing, having just come off of the Bourbon Women's Symposium, is just, not that long ago, I had my students look up when was Marion Eaves the first master distiller. Not that long ago.
No.
And I felt like almost every other person I met at SIP was distilling, getting ready to distill, had taken a tour through distilling. I mean, there were at least 10 young women who were doing this role that, within the last 20 years wasn't even something that they could see as something that was their possibilities. So I hope that the Women in Bourbon Project helps open people's eyes to what's possible.
Well, I think you're doing a good job, and I appreciate all the hard work you're doing. And the class this morning was fantastic. Your kids are great, and they had some good questions. And I think you're sending them in the right direction. And I want to thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor.
To learn more about these and Dr. Fernheimer's other projects, check out her extended interview in our Ko-fi site at ko-fi.com/BRC. We'll be right back with Ilka Balk and a tour of the James B. Beam Institute in a moment. Like what you've seen on BRC? Want to see more? Experience more? And maybe even taste more? Then head over to our Ko-fi site and become a member of the Barrel Room Parlor. By choosing the copper level membership, you'll have exclusive access to videos related to topics discussed on the podcast and blog posts for members only. As an Amber member level, you'll enjoy everything from our copper level as well as various spin-off series including The Cutting Room Floor and Kindred Spirits. In addition, the Amber membership includes exclusive discounts to live in-person events. To join, visit www.barrelroomchronicles.com and click on Become a Member in the navigation bar. Or go straight to our Ko-fi site at ko-fi.com/BRC and click on the membership link. Once you've joined, you'll have access to everything your chosen level has to offer. You'll even be able to participate with the show by commenting on videos and other posts. Don't wait. Sign up today for exclusive content and event discounts in the Barrel Room Parlor.
My name is Ilka Balk, and I am the Associate Director here in the James B. Beam Institute for Kentucky Spirits. The idea for this institute, it's been in the making a long, long time, but in 2019, the at the time, JamesBBeam Distilling Company came in and donated $5 million, which helped us get this building off the ground. And they really wanted for us to have a physical location. We have a distillation certificate already, but students were spread all over campus. And so this facility now allows us to really teach right here, and you can see that here. We have round tables. They're really designed to be teamwork conducive, so we like students working in teams at these tables. And there's only 4 offices in this building, so we're double stacked in some of them because we really wanted to use the funds and the real estate for our students and for the research that we do in the Institute. So students learn here, we teach classes here, there's one later today. And from here then they can basically go straight in the lab. So which we have this locked just because, there's alcohol in places and the classroom is pretty readily accessible to everybody on campus. And I know Emma is one of our amazing students here. Emma, will you say what you're doing? I'll give you the microphone. Is that okay? Yeah. Because Emma is phenomenal.
So I was actually one of the student interns this summer. So in the summer we really focused on production in the distillery, but this semester I'm actually continuing my research, and I'm working with one other person, and we're actually doing a research project on heritage grains. So these are grains that were grown a really long time ago and may not be the most disease resistant or pest resistant as our newer strains of corn and wheat and rye that we grow now. But they're really trying to go back to our roots and use some of these grains that they grew a really long time ago. So we're working with the distillery in Virginia, so they send us these grains, and we do a tabletop distillation with those grains just to see how they turn out. So today I did a quick second pass distillation on a Thompson's prolific grain. So that's kind of what we're up to. We have a few more grains to do this semester.
Back to you. All right. So this distillery itself, we, again, it's small in footprint, but we have the equipment, and you'll see that in a minute. We have the equipment set up so that it really mimics a full-scale distillery that you would find, maybe not at Suntory Global Spirits, but our friends in the craft distilling area, they have very similar setups and very similar sizes of their distilleries. So the students that work here and that get to experience this really work in a way where they, in real life conditions that they would find working in craft distilleries. So it's not a small pilot scale, it's truly a distillery. We have 3 500-gallon fermenters up there. We have I think it's a 500-gallon cooker, and we have a full-scale 12-inch column, 30-foot tall column still here. So on that note, I think we'll probably go down that way so we don't blow up the facility. This is Jet. He is one of our summer interns as well, and he stuck around to help with the distillation that we're doing today. So we just moved down 20 feet. We're in the production area, so we can't go in here because we're currently actively distilling, and you can probably see that in the column still behind us. We are exclusively in this facility currently making bourbon. That's not necessarily a requirement, but it is our native spirit, and we are in Kentucky, so we make mostly bourbon here. And basically the way this works, it's a continuous column still, but we only run it one batch at a time, often because we use different ingredients or different water, and that's kind of the things that we're playing around with here, testing what difference it makes to do one thing versus the other. We are getting our grains from Brooks Grains right here in Kentucky. They are generously donating the grains for us, so currently the mash bills we make is, I want to say, 75% wheat, 75% corn, trying to do the math in my head, 15% rye and 10% malted barley. And so Jet over there is basically taking some of the, I think they're doing high wines to kind of check the quality of the high wines. So he's not drinking it, he's just smelling it. But yeah, so he kind of monitors the quality as we do some of this, some of the distillation. So, and yeah, so you can kind of see what's happening there. You see the tall column still. Next to it, you see a small, what looks like a pot still. It's called a doubler. That's where we redistill some of our liquids to make it higher proof. It comes off the still at a lower proof than we want it to go into the barrel. And so we have the doubler there that we can use to increase the alcohol content a little bit. So. And then, and then when it's all said and done, eventually we will barrel. Our barrels come from Independent Stave Company. They have generously donated the barrels so far. And they also donated $1 million to build our barrel warehouse, which is right across the way. We are at a university, which you're going to laugh, is a dry campus. So the concept of making bourbon is a little bit, it's a little bit difficult for some to grasp. However, we all realize that we do want to train our next generation of distilling professionals. So someone's got to do it, and we are doing it. What we plan to do with it, so because we have our own barrel warehouse, we continue to do the research on the spirits as they mature and as they age in the barrel warehouse. And when it's done, what we would like to do is use that product for something good. So ideally, we would love to either sell it to a distillery that then bottles it and does with it whatever they want to. And we can, I'm sure we would find customers. But ideally, considering this is made by students, it would be really amazing to be able to benefit the next generation of students coming in. So ideally, hopefully, we hope to get permission to basically have barrel picks or sell the spirits and have it benefit the students through scholarships and so on. So if that makes it easier for a student to get a distilling education, we would love for that to happen. We got our distilling license, and we have a full-blown distilling license, not just an educational one, which then will allow us to sell ultimately. We got our distilling license, I think, in January. We did our first run around middle of February, and then barreled our first barrel at the end of our annual conference this March. So we host an annual conference. We had about 1,200 distillers, researchers, professionals come to campus and exchange ideas and talk to each other and at each other for 3 days. And at the end of that time, we had a reception outside and had a ceremonial first barrel fill. So, and I'll show you that barrel too when we get into the barrel warehouse.
All right, so we're now in the brand new rick house. I'm so amazed. This is beautiful. It smells gorgeous. Tell me about this part of the project.
Yeah, so this rick house, it's, you can see by industry standards, it's small. So it when it's at capacity, it'll hold 660 barrels, which again, industry standards, it just makes them chuckle. It's like a dollhouse. But it allows us to age barrels in here of the bourbon that we produced right across the way. And we can take measurements along the way. We can taste, we can test the whiskey that we've made, check for sensory issues. We do a lot of work with maturation in general. So we worry a lot about the char, the barrels, the wood, the sustainability of the wood, and so on. So having them here right on campus allows us to kind of check on them regularly, which is phenomenal. This rick house is not conditioned in any way, so it'll get cold in the winter. It is hot in the summer, yeah. So just the way we like it. And right now we have, I think we barreled a few more barrels this week maybe, but we have, I think, 40 barrels of our own stuff in here. The barrels you see standing up here, those are empty. We just got those in from Independent Stave so that we can go ahead and fill them. But Yeah, so we have barrels here. So a few weeks ago, I would have told you every single barrel in here that's filled is ours. But we did get a donation from one of the early employees from Bardstown Bourbon Company. Herb Henneman is his name, and he donated 12 barrels of their 3 to 4 year old liquid. And he is actually teaching a class here called Spirits Commercialization, and students are taking his 12 barrels from the barrel all the way to market.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a 2-semester project, and it sounds like so much fun. I see those students come in every Monday. Their class is Monday for like 3 hours, but I'm so jealous.
It's a great class. Are those the ones over there? The ones with
those are the
okay.
ones.
I'm going to get some B-roll of this in here. This is great. So tell me a little bit about the bottom floor.
Okay.
You have all these openings.
Yes. So part of that is ventilation, that there's some air moving from underneath, I think, although it's not actively ventilated or anything, but it's also a safety feature. We are in Fayette County, Kentucky. Fayette County actually does not allow, or not many allow, rick houses to be built. We are a mixed-use facility, apparently, officially. That's at least what I'm being told. But what you see underneath is really a containment basin. So if this barrel warehouse is full, every barrel fails at the same time, God forbid. But if that were to happen, everything will be contained. Nothing will go into the ground. There is a runoff area, also concrete underneath, that will catch everything that somehow doesn't get caught here or that runs into that direction. So it's really an environmental issue for us, but also the yellow grate that you see, it's really just fall protection. This warehouse, the ricks themselves were designed by a company called K-Rax, which is owned by Cutter Construction. They basically built these in a way that will help us avoid injuries. You may or may not know, if you've ever tried to move a barrel, they are very heavy. So the empty ones are, 100 pounds, 120 pounds, or something like that. The full ones are over 500 pounds. When they start rolling, you are not going to stop it with your foot or anything like that. So this barrel warehouse, one thing that when you're in Bardstown later this week, you might see the difference in some of them. A lot of them have crossbars, for example. Mm-hmm. So when those barrels go in, the people handling the barrels will go in with crowbars to guide them into the slots, so to speak. So they pull the crowbars out, they put it back in, they pull it back out, and they go along this barrel. So having all these crossbars, every time you move a crowbar, it's not called a crowbar, but it looks like it, in and out, you will have a risk for injury because you can pinch a finger, you can get your hand stuck somehow. So not having these crossbars really allows those barrels to go in and out much more easily with less injury potential. The yellow grates, same thing. If you kind of step in accidentally, you don't fall, you don't twist an ankle, you don't break a leg, so you are protected there. And the way they got rid of these crossbars and still have it stable is by having these little arches, so those provide the stability. They also made these ricks from laminated wood, so it's pine, I think it's pine, but it's laminated, which makes it less likely to bend and bow. So again, when this thing bows, and then it kind of gets harder to keep that barrel in line, by not bending, it's just going to stay on track more easily, and hopefully nothing's going to happen to anybody who's moving those barrels. So it's just a lot of safety considerations that went into this, and so that kind of is of course great. If we train our students in this barrel warehouse, this is the standard that they are used to, and hopefully will then help them be safe in industry as well when they go.
So tell me, is there a reason, I know a lot of places now, instead of doing the rolling racks, which I prefer, are starting to do palletizing.
Right.
Tell me why you guys went with rolling instead of palletizing.
So we went with rolling because most of the larger distilleries, as far as I know anyway, are using these types of rick houses. It is also a lot easier to pull the barrels for sampling if we need if we need to sample any barrels or test any liquid, it's easier for us to get to than if they were stacked up and then you need a forklift. So you would need a forklift in this building to move those barrels. And so those, again, for us, that's just, again, another potential for injury to have these forklifts move barrels. So that was kind of the consideration for us on this.
So I'm assuming you fill over there and you bring them over here. How do you just roll it? Is that...
So we actually have a little pallet truck that we just roll, and I can show you if you want. We roll it through the side, and there's a barrel elevator that brings it. So we go in through the elevator, but that also ultimately will allow us to get the barrels onto the second floor.
This is fantastic. I love it. I would love to have one of these in my backyard.
I know. I would like that too. So this building is called the Cooper House, and it is named after the first Dean of the College of Agriculture, Thomas Cooper, and it was occupied by the dean of the college in the early 1900s and mid 1900s. And then after that, it kind of fell into disrepair and was boarded up and not very nice to look at. And a few years ago, actually the grandson of Dean Cooper said, this is really not okay that this building looks that way, and started raising money and donated a chunk of money to get this building back into the shape that it was in before. And the grandson is a UK graduate as well, who's also elderly now, but his name is Tom Hammond, and you may, if you ever watched the Olympics in the last 20 or 30 years, you may remember he was the Olympics commentator for NBC. He did the Derby commentary. He's retired now, but so he was that grandson who then was able to, wrestle his friends and make them help out and donated a significant amount of money himself. And so now that is the welcome center, so to speak, for our College of Agriculture, Food and Environment here at the University of Kentucky. That's where prospective students first meet with our staff and learn about the college as a whole and getting a degree here. It's also where our philanthropy office sits for raising all this money and making it happen. So it's great for us to be neighbors with them because every prospective student will be coming through here and will see the distillery, will see what we're doing, and all the construction around us that you see and hear is actually the college is building. As far as I know, I think 3 brand new buildings. There's going to be a new classroom building, a DEA research facility, and then another research building. So we are in a big expansion, and the Beam Institute is at the center of it. So we're excited.
That does it for today's show. To read notes on this episode or learn more about our guests, please visit barrelroomchronicles.com. Want to interact with the show or have questions for our guests? Then ask them on our socials or send us an email. Or better yet, leave us a voicemail on our website. If you like what you heard, please rate and subscribe to the podcast. If you really liked it and you want to show your support, buy us a whiskey through our Ko-fi site at ko-fi.com/BRC or become an exclusive member of the Barrel Room Parlor. If you work in the whiskey or spirits industry or just have a deep passion for whiskey and want to share your spirits journey, register to be a guest through our website. Last but not least, please enjoy your spirits responsibly. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, Solanjeva.
Barrel Room Chronicles is a production of First Reel Entertainment and is available on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.